What's up, everybody, man? Welcome to another MonsterVerse lore Q&A. In this series, I take your guys' questions and comments about the MonsterVerse and answer them to the best of my ability. Today, we're going to be continuing an ongoing discussion that we started in the last MonsterVerse lore Q&A. In the last episode of the MonsterVerse lore Q&A, we discussed the history between Adam and Dagon in the MonsterVerse, the original Godzilla, the bones that were discovered in the Philippines in Godzilla 2014, and the character we expand upon in Godzilla Aftershock. I talked about what's canon and what the relationship between Adam and Dagon really is in this universe. If you want to go see that, go check that video out now. And today, I'll be expanding upon the discussions about Adam using comments that I got from a previous MonsterVerse lore Q&A. Today, we're going to be diving into the history of Dagon in the MonsterVerse. Specifically, was Dagon there to help defend against King Ghidorah during his original reign on the planet, or was Dagon already dead, killed by MUTO Prime before Ghidorah arrived? Let's get into it. Thank you guys all for checking out another episode of the MonsterVerse lore Q&A. If you have any questions about the lore of the MonsterVerse, please comment those down below. I'm taking your guys' questions and answering them in this series. Today, our question comes to us from Alder Lopez Castro 4928, who asks, do you think Dagon/Adam died and then Ghidorah arrived? If so, why do you think Godzilla didn't help against the MUTO Prime? Maybe Godzillas are loners. Honestly, at first I thought that this question might just be like one of those completely unanswerable questions, like, I don't know, what came first, King Ghidorah or MUTO Prime? We don't really know, do we? We do know. Specifically, what we know is that King Ghidorah arrived on Earth at some point in the ancient past and caused a reign of terror, but never properly gained a foothold over the planet and was not able to conquer it. Ghidorah fought Godzilla multiple times throughout the past, as I've covered in other episodes of the MonsterVerse lore Q&A series. Ghidorah and Godzilla fought on at least 3 separate occasions. We see cave art in Godzilla King of the Monsters of Godzilla fighting alongside Mothra against King Ghidorah. Rodan's there. I actually think Rodan might be fighting Godzilla himself, meaning Rodan and Mothra might be engaged in combat in that photo, as it's possible Rodans throughout history have always been loyal to King Ghidorah. Remember, that's not the same Rodan from Godzilla King of the Monsters, as Michael Dougherty confirmed the Godzilla King of the Monsters Rodan is a newborn. There's also a MUTO in that art for some reason, and that art is on the Godzilla temple wall in Hollow Earth, so it's actually in the movie. It's just not fully seen unless you turn up the exposure. There's other cave art of Godzilla fighting King Ghidorah. This one is a solo battle between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, and this one was depicted by some ancient human culture who did witness this fight that was not the Hollow Earth civilization. Probably kind of seems like potentially sometime after the Hollow Earth civilization, but we don't know for sure. And that artwork is discovered in Kong Skull Island. Finally, there's the ultimate battle that Godzilla and King Ghidorah had in Antarctica. Michael Dougherty confirmed at some point in Antarctica, Godzilla and Ghidorah fight for the throne, with Godzilla winning that fight. While not the most reputable source, an Easy Hobby guidebook diving into the lore of the MonsterVerse elaborates on the fact that Godzilla was able to shoot Ghidorah out of the sky, knocking him into the ocean where he's basically pinned down by ice. He can't get out and he's frozen. He's trapped down there. This is supported by the posture of Ghidorah under the water. It looks like Ghidorah's frozen on his back as if he was pinned down by a large chunk of ice and couldn't make it to the surface in time and wound up freezing down there. This is also supported by the novelization for Godzilla King of the Monsters, which states that Ghidorah is covered in burns as if he's shot out of the sky with the atomic breath. So while Godzilla might not have been able to fully defeat him in combat, Godzilla was able to use the environment to help him defeat Ghidorah and at least seal him away for quite a while. That's really all we know the specifics about, but we know Ghidorah's reign of terror lasted for a little bit of time, and during that time, it's possible Ghidorah was opposed by other members of Godzilla species. I theorized previously in one of these MonsterVerse lore Q&As that one of the reasons Ghidorah may not have been able to take over the entire planet is because he arrived at a time when there were other Godzillas ready to help defend Godzilla and protect nature's balance. Godzilla himself is not nature's balance. Nature has an order, a power to restore balance. In the context of the Godzilla 2014, Godzilla was that power, and it seems like Godzilla has kind of always had the role of trying to protect the Earth itself. It's possible other members of his species shared a similar duty, a similar role in the ecosystem. So I think it's likely that if Ghidorah arrived on Earth at a time when other Godzillas existed, or other Godzilla-like creatures existed, I'll use the nomenclature Legendary would prefer us to use, it's possible they would also oppose King Ghidorah. But was that even a possibility? I mean, were there even other members of Godzilla's species? What about the only other one we've really spent any time with, Dagon, aka Adam, the bones we see in Godzilla 2014, and the one who perished in their battle with MUTO Prime? That's a question we can finally answer. That Easy Hobby guidebook states King Ghidorah was frozen at some point during the last ice age on Earth. Well, you know what else we know about that ice age is that that's the ice age Shimo caused, the last ice age. I totally forgot to make the connection I was even trying to make here, but Ghidorah being frozen in the last ice age and Shimo causing the last ice age is only relevant because it's stated in the Godzilla Kong the New Empire novelization that the ice Ghidorah's frozen in is consistent with the ice Shimo produces. The thing I was trying to just bring up was that going back to that Easy Hobby guidebook, not the most reliable source, but it gives us an indication of what the filmmakers were thinking. It's consistent with all of the expanded material that came out around the time of Godzilla King of the Monsters, such as the novelization and the art book for Godzilla King of the Monsters. That all supports that, especially with like the burns that Ghidorah has all over him. But it's also supported in the Godzilla Kong novelization, where we find out the ice Ghidorah's in is consistent with the ice of the ice age that Shimo started. So it seems like at some point Shimo starts the ice age, and then during that ice age, we don't know when, Ghidorah freezes. Could even be that Shimo's already long gone in Hollow Earth by the time Ghidorah arrives on the surface and then does his thing, because the ice age lasted for a really long time. So that's just the point I was trying to make. The last ice age lasted from 26,500 BCE to 19,000 BCE, with the majority of the cooling ending around 11,700 BCE. That gives us a pretty massive range on when Ghidorah could have arrived from Earth. Ghidorah could have arrived on Earth at any time in the past up until about, let's say, 11,700 BCE. Homo sapiens appeared at some point between 315,000 BCE and 190,000 BCE. So they've got the ice age fully covered. There's people around, which is important because we know people were around in order to depict the artwork of Godzilla fighting Ghidorah. By 10,000 BCE, Homo sapiens had migrated to cover most of the planet, meaning it's probably towards the later end of the ice age that Godzilla was officially able to seal Ghidorah away for there to be so many records of Ghidorah throughout different cultures. It's unclear how much, if anything, Shimo had to do with any of this. You know, we don't really know how much Shimo actually contributed to the cause of the last ice age. It's possible she just sped up or contributed to part of Earth's natural ecosystem. Like in real life, we didn't need a Shimo to cause the ice age, it just happened. So it's possible in the MonsterVerse that there was going to be an ice age anyways, one that did not relate to Shimo, and she just kind of amplified it or sped it up or did something. It seems like based on the Godzilla Kong New Empire novelization, she seems to have sped up the process. There's also a possibility that there were other members of Shimo's species there to do the same thing, to help, so it wasn't just her. We don't know. There's not enough information on that. What we do know is that Ghidorah was frozen at some point during this period. Meanwhile, Godzilla Aftershock confirms Dagon died in the 11th century BCE. So Dagon died after Ghidorah went on ice, meaning he could have played a supporting part in helping keep nature's balance against Ghidorah during his time on Earth. It's very possible those two creatures wound up bumping into each other. Now, Dr. Serizawa tells us the rivalry between our Godzilla and King Ghidorah is unique, meaning very likely Godzilla was the core monster standing up to King Ghidorah throughout time, not just any member of his species, but our Godzilla. So yeah, Dagon could have fought King Ghidorah, or at the very least could have played a supporting part in making sure another mass awakening didn't happen. Another theory that I've seen, which I think makes a lot of sense, is that the reason Ghidorah didn't start a mass awakening back in the day is, first of all, because the Titans were already awakening up and doing stuff, and secondly, he didn't have command over them. The reason Ghidorah is able to command them in Godzilla King of the Monsters is due to the fact that Godzilla is presumed dead, and so he is the reigning alpha on the planet. I think the theory makes a lot of sense. I also think it's important to acknowledge Ghidorah being able to control and command the Titans is not something that Godzilla can do. Godzilla does not have that ability. That is part of Ghidorah's alien abilities, part of his superpowers, if you will. Like, that's one of Ghidorah's powers. Like how Godzilla has the atomic breath, Ghidorah's got that ability in his arsenal. Godzilla cannot control the actions of other monsters. At least, not that we've seen demonstrated in the movies. Otherwise, they would not be defiant against him when he's there to show up and tell Scylla to leave Rome, you know? She just would. Ghidorah's power is uniquely his own. So maybe he just didn't do it back then because he was doing other things. I don't know. No one does. So yes, it is possible, and very likely Dagon played some role in helping keep nature's balance while Ghidorah was on Earth. While there is still so much to get into with Alder Lopez Castro's comment, I want to save that for another episode, because I feel like we've already had a great discussion here. There's a lot to discuss there as well. And so in the next one, I'm going to be diving back into the same question, because it was so rich with lore that we can get into, and I'll discuss why Godzilla wasn't there to defend against MUTO Prime. Prime, where was Godzilla, and what the relationship Godzilla had with other members of his species in the Monsterverse. Was Godzilla an incredibly aggressive loner, or is he very protective and defensive over his kind? I'll discuss in the next one. As always though, thank you so much for the questions. If you have any Monsterverse questions, comment those down below, and I'm happy to answer them in future Monsterverse lore Q&As. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.